Hello and welcome. Tonight, the chairman of the Independent National Electoral Commission, INEC, Professor Attahiru Jega, ends his tenure. President Muhammadu Buhari names Mrs. Amina Bala Zakari as the acting chairman of INEC. The Central Bank of Nigeria, CBN, extends the deadline for the bank verification number registration by 4 months, from June the 30th to October the 31st, 2015. President Muhammadu Buhari says that the federal government will continue to do its best to ensure that victims of Boko Haram's atrocities receive necessary support. More than 100 are feared killed as a military transport plane crashes in a residential area of the Indonesian city of Medan.
On business news tonight, Pt.1 Capital releases reports of equities markets in Africa. While on sports news, world's fastest man Usain Bolt withdraws from 2 Diamond League races in Paris and Lausanne due to injury.
"5 years in office, 2 general elections, and it's time to quit." And that's exactly what the chairman of the Independent National Electoral Commission, INEC, Professor Attahiru Jega, has done. The INEC boss has bowed out of office today in Abuja, Nigeria's federal capital territory. Earlier on today, Professor Jega handed over to a national commissioner, Ambassador Muhammad Wali. But less than an hour ago, President Muhammadu Buhari appointed Mrs. Amina Bala Zakari as the acting chairman of INEC. The head of the civil service of the Federation, Barrister Danladi Kifasi, who conveyed the appointment in a letter, said it is with effect from the 30th of June 2015 until the appointment of a substantive chairman. Mrs. Zakari is presently a national electoral commissioner at INEC. Prior to this development, Professor Jega had thanked Nigerians for the opportunity to serve and said the future is bright for Nigeria and the Commission. Our correspondent, Lanre Lasisi, has the report.
It's the last day for Professor Attahiru Jega, and he heads for one last meeting, a meeting with national commissioners. The outgoing chairman started with a brief statement.
I have done a letter now to Mr. President informing him that my tenure was to expire yesterday, and under those circumstances, decided to hand over to one of the national commissioners who is still around until an acting or a substantive appointment is made. I propose to hand over to Ambassador Muhammad Wali, who has a relatively longer span, at least longer than those who are living in July, although not as long as those who will be there until, I think, November or December.
The meeting almost became emotional as he took the chance to say his goodbyes.
I will leave INEC not only gratified and thankful to Almighty Allah for ensuring that we had a successful tenure, but also thanking you most especially for your camaraderie and collaboration and partnership and teamwork. I wish all of you all the best, and I definitely will keep in touch. So thank you very much. Guide you and enable you.
The meeting ends and he leaves the office he occupied for the last 5 years.
No, I can't talk to you.
How does it feel leaving the commission you served for 5 years?
It feels great. We thank God Almighty for the opportunity to serve our country. And the future is bright for the commission and for the country.
What do you want us Nigerians to remember you for?
The secretary of the commission gave a brief on the acting chairman, Professor Ahmed Wali.
He is one of the commissioners whose tenures will expire on the 11th of August. And the chairman has handed over to him pending the appointment of a substantive chairman by the government, or pending when his tenure expires. But we believe that we will soon hear from the government about what will happen next.
As Professor Jega leaves the premises, history will remember his years of service, and discussions will continue on how he reformed the nation's electoral system and indeed the electoral body. Lanre Lasese, Channels Television News.
Well, let's look into the times of Professor Jega and his 5-year tenure as the INEC chairman as he bowed out today.
Pledge to Nigerians that as I assume this office with the other national commissioners, personally, I will give it my best. I will do everything possible to ensure.
That is in 2010 when Professor Atahiru Jega was appointed as the INEC chairman. Obvious commitment and resilience from the new boss at the Electoral Commission office. Professor Jega was a man who assumed office with a lot of expectations on him. The president at the time, former President Goodluck Jonathan, said he has not met him before but has heard so much about him. He promised Nigerians that the INEC chairman he will appoint is a man of integrity. And so, for a lot of Nigerians, Professor Jega brought with him almost an impeccable reputation. But as the work began, some stark realities started coming to light. The task of delivering a free and fair elections less than a year after his appointment was perhaps daunting. Professor Jega will be working with politicians for a few weeks to the elections. His view about them is quite interesting.
Institutions of the political class, individually and through their organized platforms, the political parties, I must say frankly, leaves much to be desired.
The 2011 elections came, but it appears almost everything that could go wrong did. Sadly, on the day of the polls, Professor Jega dropped a bombshell.
In order to maintain the integrity of the elections and retain effective overall control of the process, the Commission has taken the very difficult but necessary decision to postpone the National Assembly elections to Monday, April 4, 2011.
Between 2011 and 2015, several staggered elections held, several mistakes too. INEC stumbled, and in the midst of it, the Jega-led commission introduced the permanent voter cards and the card readers. The 2015 election is indeed a landmark event, not only for INEC or Professor Jega or his men, but also for the nation. The height of some of the drama which played out was when the result was being announced.
Your passion, you're doing it. Why will you not respond? Why will you not respond to our issues? Why will you not respond to our protests?
A full tenure has now come to an end for Professor Jega at the helm of affairs in INEC. So, how has he fared?
Professor Jega was chairman of INEC for 5 years and improved the reputation of the commission to conduct elections, increase the credibility of the Independent National Electoral Commission, and increase the people's or citizens' confidence in the electoral process. Certainly before him, there were concerns about INEC and its ability to deliver on credible elections.
People still have some relative confidence in INEC, and you cannot separate it from the work of Professor Atahiru Jega, because before he came in, a lot of negative impression of INEC, but that has been built up significantly. And I believe Professor Jega has achieved this by bringing more transparency into the process.
For Professor Jega and INEC, the journey may be over, but then how far have we traveled as a nation in our electoral life? That's a big question, I guess, and not a dispensation may yet unravel. Sheung Wakimbaloe, Channels Television News.
Well, earlier today, Professor Jega handed over to a national commissioner, Ambassador Muhammad Wali, But less than an hour ago, President Muhammadu Buhari appointed Mrs. Amina Bala Zakari as the acting chairman of INEC, and we'll be discussing these developments shortly. In the meantime, in part 2, after the break, President Muhammadu Buhari says that the federal government will continue to do its best to ensure that victims of Boko Haram's atrocities receive necessary support. Do stay with us.